for side opposition to win this debate, they needed to adequately show us that religious belief is actually related to people being rehabilitated in the sense that they respect legality instead of just like religious belief or blindly believing in God, right? As a state, as a criminal justice system, we need to prioritize accountable measures that can show that inmates are not going to commit crimes again, regardless of their religious identity, just because breaking the law is bad. That is the type of criminal justice system that we support. Two issues in today's debate. One, which paradigm gives a more effective rehabilitation? Secondly, is the state justified in using religion for a public cause? First point, on rehabilitation. I think the type of analysis given by side opposition is completely inadequate. All of those things that came out of their paradigm is like community building or value of respecting yourself or finding your identity or not harming others and so forth. It's not related to religion at all. We literally have systems of community services in which inmates can go into society and interact with people and know why you should not harm these people because you're fellow citizens of the society. In comparison to that, note that religious organization or religion itself has a smaller community, right? Even if you believe that Christianity, if you interact with a Christian community, you do not have the chance to interact with other communities. We already told you why this is very, very harmful, because one, we think that respect for the law is not established, which means that so far as you obey Christianity, you don't find the necessity of obeying the law. But secondly, in many cases, religious organization is oftentimes very, this does not have very positive interactions with other religious organizations, which means things like conflicts is more likely to happen. Even though they try to fiat that all people are, they will be able to adequately remove specific antisocial contents, I don't think that is realistic, right? Firstly, I think that if they try to remove specific contents from religion, that is problematic because the state is interfering in the content of the religion. I think churches are less likely to come in and volunteer or give support to these prisons in terms of rehabilitation. But secondly, they're going to leave prison after a while. They're going to go into society when you become a Muslim in prison without knowing the very radical contents, some radical contents of Islam that may happen, that other organizations of Islam may believe in. I think they still have access to have a probability of radicalization. I think it's very easy for communities, religious communities, to reach out to those ex-prisoners and give them ideas of being very anti-LGBTQ, very anti-abortion. I think this is particularly harmful, especially because religion itself is almost like brainwashing when the state is implementing it to the prisoners. This is because when you're teaching people that this is bad because God said so, when another organization can come in and say, actually, God wants you to go and harm LGBTQ people, we don't see a mechanism as to why that individual is going to stop respecting the law over that religious kind of extremist ideologies. We don't see any accountability from their side. In comparison to that, note that we gave you a very detailed mechanism as to why our paradigm is more likely to happen. In our paradigm, we base things on the science, right? We have things like counseling, professional psychologists who's going to interact with individual prisoners and figure out a way that is very effective rather than just fiating that religion is going to wreck. I think it is very irresponsible for the government to just make an assumption that because somebody is now Christian, he is automatically a good person. A lot of people from the Italian mafia are Christian, they are not good people. We need a linkage to how religion and being good is actually good, right? But secondly, we think that they need to engage with the second point, is the state justified in using religion for a public cause? But before moving on to my point, yes.
Okay, so even if scientific approach for rehabilitation is hypothetically effective, does the prisoners who are feeling antipathy to the government will actually accept or internalize those values?
Excellent. Antipathy to the government. Let's look at some specific cases in which rehabilitation being used by religion is going to impact the way inmates look at the government. In a Christian-based nation, for example, like rural parts of the US, if you teach Islam to those kind of people, then obviously they're going to have a very anti-national sentiment because their whole value system is now based on religion, and they have a very strong, a second point, a government is implementing propaganda to these people through the use of religion, right? I think religion and politics should never go together, because when states start implementing religion in terms of like brainwashing and so forth, it's very, very harmful, because other religious organizations will be less likely to be exercise their right of freedom of religion and so forth. Second point, is the state justified in using religion for public cause? We got a very limited response from side opposition. We told you that the fact is all taxpayers' money is being used for these kinds of policies. All taxpayers' money is being used for a particular religion in particular context that we do not consent to. We think that it is unfair for selecting a particular religion due to things like geographical or logistical issues, but we also feel like they didn't respond to the fact that in many cases the government should not be using taxation for something that they cannot explain and justify to be effective. Lastly, I think they needed to engage with a couple of points that is still important in today's debate. We told you that this motion, by opposing this motion, there's going to be a lack of incentive of the government to invest in other sorts of rehabilitation, right? We already told you that the impact to other people who do not want to opt into religion is going to be big. I think if you have a very limited amount of resources, it is better to take a policy that is applicable to all people, all inmates, without having them to choose a religion that might impact their entire life, right? I think when the choice is the only option to rehabilitate is based on choosing a religion and completely changing your identity, I don't think that is a good way of rehabilitation. At the end of the day, in our side of the house, we are going to base our rehab not breaking the law regardless of your religious identity. That cannot be achieved by their side of the house. We don't care if we get good Christians, we want good citizens who do not harm others, and that is why we win today's round.
Thank you, Gov Whip, for your excellent speech. I'll proceed to the opposition.
Same criteria to oppose this motion. First, which side is effective of the rehabilitation, and secondly,